My name is Faith Fowler, and I'm 38 years old. Last March, my parents booked a 10-day anniversary cruise for 19 relatives, and what landed in my inbox was a $52,000 invoice, not an invitation. 10 cabins, 19 names. Mine wasn't one of them. When I called my mom and asked why nobody had thought to ask me first, she didn't even pause. "You're the one with money, honey, not the one with time." I paid it. Every cent of it. But I do budgets for a living, so I also read every page of what I was signing, and there was one line on page 4 that my family really should have read too. What they did with my money over the next 90 days, and what I did at 6 a.m. on departure day, while 19 suitcases were rolling toward that terminal, none of them saw it coming. Welcome back to Hidden Family Revenge, where the family stories nobody tells at dinner finally get told, and where quiet people stop being quiet. If you have ever been the one everybody counts on and nobody counts, this story is for you. Drop a comment below, and be sure to subscribe. Let me back up. I'm a CPA in Dayton, Ohio. I opened my own two-person accounting firm at 27, in a strip mall between a nail salon and a sub shop. And I have spent every tax season since sleeping 5 hours a night and apologizing to a ficus I keep forgetting to water. I'm not flashy. I drive a 9-year-old Honda. But I built something from nothing. And in my family, that made me a public utility. You know how some people are saved in their relatives' phones as Aunt Carol or Danny Boy? I'm fairly sure I'm saved in half my family's phones as Faith Taxes. My cousin called me at 11 at night once to ask if she could write off a hot tub. My sister-in-law Melissa sends me screenshots of her credit card statement with question marks. I answer all of it. I always have. Here's the thing about being the reliable one. Reliability reads as a personality for about a decade, and then it just reads as infrastructure. Nobody thanks a bridge. They just drive over it and complain when there's a toll. I knew that, by the way. I do budgets for a living. I know exactly what a red flag costs, down to the decimal. Knowing didn't make me any better at saying no to my mother. So when an email from my brother Danny showed up on a Tuesday afternoon in March, subject line, Fowler 45th, final, with a party emoji and one PDF attached, I want you to understand that some part of me already knew. I opened it anyway. And then I sat very still for a long time. The PDF was an invoice from Meridian Cruise Line. 10 days, Eastern Caribbean, aboard a ship called the Meridian Dawn, sailing out of Port Canaveral on June 14th. 10 cabins, 19 passengers, all listed by name. My parents, Carol and Jean, Danny and Melissa and their kids, Melissa's parents, my Aunt Ruth, a tide of cousins. I read the list twice, top to bottom, the way I read a client's ledger when a number feels wrong. 19 names, and not one of them was mine. There was no note from my mother, no message from my dad, just Melissa's handwriting living inside a yellow comment bubble on the total line, $52,400, with a short note next to it. Your share, and a smiley face. My share, of a trip I was not on. I sat in my office and did what I do best, which is math. 19 people, 10 cabins, 10 days at sea to celebrate my parents' 45th wedding anniversary. A party my family had clearly been planning for months, with a group chat and a packing list and matching shirts apparently. And the sum total of my involvement, the entire shape of my place in it, fit inside one PDF and one smiley face. It was an invoice, not an invitation. I remember thinking those exact words, calmly, the way you notice the water in a basement, before you understand what it's about to cost you. Then I picked up the phone and called my mother because there had to be an explanation. There was. It just wasn't the kind you recover from. My mom picked up on the second ring and I could hear her television in the background. I kept my voice level. "Mom, I got an invoice for a cruise I'm not booked on." "Isn't it wonderful?" she said. 45 years. Danny found the ship. The whole family's coming. The whole family. I let that sit for a second. "Mom, my name isn't on it. Nobody asked me. Nobody even told me. And my mother, who has known me for 38 years, who taught me to ride a bike, who cried at my college graduation, said, in the warm, patient voice you'd use to explain something to a slow child. Honey, everyone gives what they have. Danny has the time to plan it. Your father and I have the years worth celebrating. And you. I heard her take a sip of coffee. You're the one with money, not the one with time. You'd have just said you couldn't get away from the office. That was it. That was the whole reasoning. Not an insult in her mind. A compliment almost. A division of labor. Some people bring potato salad, and some people bring $52,400. I asked her quietly if it had occurred to anyone to at least book me a room. She laughed. Not cruelly. That's the part I keep coming back to. She laughed like I'd made a small joke at a nice dinner. Oh, honey, you'd work the whole time anyway. Then she said the deadline was Monday, told me Danny would send the payment details, and hung up before I could ask the obvious question. Deadline. What deadline? I found out on Thursday, and by then it was already a trap. To be fair to my family, they had 12 years of evidence that this would work. When I was 26, 2 years into my firm, a hailstorm chewed up my parents' roof in Beaver Creek. Insurance covered some of it. I covered the rest. $28,000. My dad cried on the phone. And then for years afterward, I'd sit at Thanksgiving and listen to him tell company how he'd finally gotten that roof done. And I'd watch the story get a little further away from me every time he told it. When Danny's landscaping thing fell through, I bought him a $19,000 truck so he could bet on himself. The bet did not pay out, but the truck sat in his driveway with a base boat hitched to it, so something got caught, I guess. When my dad's teeth got bad enough that he stopped smiling in pictures, I paid $9,000 to a dentist in Centerville, and the first time Dad grinned at the camera again, my mom said, "God is good." God, as far as I know, did not submit an invoice. I never asked for the money back. I want to be honest about that. I never even asked for the credit. Every check I wrote had the same words under my breath. That's what family does. So why did this one feel different? I sat with that question all night, and the answer was simple, and it was ugly. Every other time, they at least pretended I was part of the thing I was paying for. This time, they didn't bother. This time the pretending was over, and the invoice was just the truth with a smiley face on it. Thursday morning, I learned what Deadline Monday actually meant, and I learned it from the fine print, because nobody in my family reads anything. Danny had reserved the 10 cabins back in January with a deposit, $2,500 charged to my dad's card, which I'd bet money Dad didn't know until the statement came. Cruise lines want the balance paid in full 90 days before sailing. That was Monday, March 16th. Miss it, and the reservation cancels. Deposit gone, cabins released, and with a June sailing that popular, no realistic way to rebook 19 people together at that price. So the choice they had built for me, brick by brick, looked like this: wire $52,000 by Monday, or become the reason Grandma and Grandpa's 45th anniversary collapsed and 18 people lost their deposits. And here's the detail that actually got me. Wednesday night, my Aunt Ruth called. Ruth is 74. She's my mom's older sister, a widow, lives on Social Security and a pension from 30 years of school cafeterias. "Kiddo," she said, "I heard they sent you the bill. That wasn't right." Then softer. "I put 200 down for my little room. If it's gone, it's gone. Don't you dare pay that on my account." $200. For Ruth, that's groceries for a month. She was the only person in the family who apologized to me, and she was the only one who couldn't afford to lose a dime. That's how the trap worked, you see. It wasn't baited with Danny. It was baited with Ruth. I hung up and stared at the wire instructions, and I thought, there is exactly one person left who might still make this okay. My dad. My dad came to my office on Friday. He didn't call first. He stood in my doorway holding his cap in both hands like a man at a funeral, and I felt hope do that stupid thing it does. That little lift. Because my dad is not a schemer. My dad is an electrician who worked 39 years without a single OSHA write-up, who taught me to check my work twice, who says, measure the job, not the man. If anyone was going to say this whole thing is wrong, they sent you a bill like you're a vendor. It was Gene Fowler. He sat down across from my desk. He looked at the carpet. And he said, "Just this once, Faithy. For your mother. Just this once." I looked at my father, at the straight white teeth I paid $9,000 for, forming the words, "just this once." And I almost laughed. I'm an accountant. I know what just this once is. It's a recurring charge wearing a costume. It's the 12th once in 12 years, and it books the same way every time. But I didn't say any of that. What I said was, "Did you know they didn't book me a cabin, Dad?" And my father, who rewired half of Beaver Creek, who can find a dead circuit in a wall by feel, looked at his hands and said, "Your mother handles all that." Then he patted my desk twice, like it was a good dog, and left. So that was my ally. That was the cavalry. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a glass of wine I didn't drink, and I opened the Meridian Cruise Line website, and I clicked the tab nobody in the history of vacations has ever clicked. Booking terms and conditions. Here's something most people don't know about cruises, because most people are sane and don't read contracts for fun. A cruise line won't take $52,000 from a stranger. If I was going to pay, my name had to go on the booking itself, as the payer of record. Saturday morning, I called Meridian's group desk and a very patient woman explained it. The travel agency would add me to the reservation, I'd sign the group contract, and then, and only then, could my card be charged. Monday morning, the agency emailed me the paperwork, and I did what I do for every client and had never once done for my own family. I printed it, took a highlighter, and read all 11 pages. Deposit schedule. Cancellation penalties. Inside 14 days of sailing, you lose 100%. No refunds, no exceptions. And then, Section 9. Group bookings. Authority of the group leader. The group leader is the sole party authorized to modify or cancel the reservation, in whole or in part. All guest changes require the group leader's written consent. I read it twice. Then I looked at the signature line, where the agency had already typed the name of the person paying for everything, the only name that, legally, held the whole trip in its hands. Group leader, Faith Fowler. My family wanted me to be the money and nothing else. Fine. But money signs things, and signatures have powers, and nobody in that group chat had ever read a contract in their lives. I signed all 11 pages, before I tell you what 90 days of silence taught me. If you've ever been the family wallet instead of the family daughter, tell me in the comments. I read everyone. And subscribe, because what my brother did with my name at that anniversary party, you should hear from me. Monday at 10 a.m., I called the agency and read my card number out loud, digit by digit, the way you'd read a eulogy. $52,400. For scale, that is more than I earned in my entire first year of running my firm. That is 104 months of Ruth's cafeteria pension. I heard the keys clatter on the other end, and then the agent said, cheerful as a bell, "You're all set. The family's going to have a wonderful time." The family. Sure. My office manager, Bonnie Tate, was standing in my doorway when I hung up. Bonnie is 55, raised 3 boys on a bookkeeper's salary, and has a radar for financial self-harm the way some people can smell rain. She didn't say a word. She just walked to the coffee maker, poured me a cup, set it on my desk, and squeezed my shoulder once on her way out. That squeeze said everything her mouth was too polite to. Here's a detail for the accountants in the room. When I logged the payment in my personal books that night, I had to pick a category. I hovered over Loan Family for a second, the way you hover over an old photo. Then I filed it under Gifts, because I'm a professional, and a ledger is no place for fiction, and I knew exactly as well as you do that no dollar of that money was ever coming back. What I didn't log, because there's no category for it, was the one thing I noticed at midnight. Every confirmation, every receipt, every document for a 10-day cruise for 19 people had gone to exactly one email address. Mine. Nobody else had asked to see a thing. Now I have to tell you the part I've never told anyone, because it's the part that still embarrasses me. 2 days after I paid, I called the agency back. On my lunch break, door closed, voice down like I was doing something illegal, and I booked one more cabin. For me. Cabin 8226 Deck 8 interior, no window, near the elevators. $3,180. On top of everything else. Out of my own pocket, same as everything else. I told myself it was practical. It's my parents' 45th. Somebody responsible should be aboard. Somebody always gets seasick or loses a passport, and guess whose job that is? But that's not why. And you know it's not why. I booked that windowless little room because some 10-year-old girl who still lives in my ribcage believed that if I was just there, at the sail-away party, at the anniversary dinner, in the group photo in the matching shirts, then somewhere between Florida and the Bahamas, my family would look over at me and see a daughter instead of a debit card. I didn't announce it. I didn't post it in the group chat I technically wasn't in. I just quietly added my name to a manifest of people who had not asked for it, and I paid for the privilege, and for about a week I let myself picture it. Me at the rail, sunburned, holding one of those ridiculous drinks with the umbrella. It's a strange thing to admit at 38. All that money, and what I was actually trying to buy was a seat at a table my own mother sets. Keep that cabin number in your head. 8226. It matters later. The money landed and the family lit up like a scoreboard. Ruth, bless her, forwarded me screenshots because I was not in the group chat. The chat was called Cruise Fam, all caps, with a little ship emoji, and the morning everything went to paid in full. It was wall-to-wall confetti. We're official. 10 days, baby. Grandma and Grandpa, you deserve this. And then, the message that got 41 thumbs up and heart reactions from my cousin Kayla. Thank you, Danny, for putting this whole thing together. You're amazing. Danny replied with a flexing arm and the words, anything for this family? Anything for this family. The man had not spent $1. He had spent my father's $2,500 on the deposit and my $52,000 on the rest, and he collected the gratitude the way a toll booth collects quarters, automatically, and with a little green light. I scrolled that screenshot for longer than I want to admit, looking for my name. It appeared exactly once, near the bottom, in a message from Melissa. Can someone ask Faith to order the matching lanyards? Like 20? She's so good at logistics. She's so good at logistics. There it was. My role, in writing. Not, should we see if Faith wants to come? Not even, has anyone thanked Faith? Just a task, tossed toward the help desk, with my own money still warm in the till. I ordered the lanyards, by the way. 20 of them. Navy blue, Fowler 45th, stitched in gold. I'm sure that surprises you. It shouldn't. Habits like mine take decades to build, and I was still 90 days from understanding what mine had cost me. That night, Ruth texted me privately. You okay, kiddo? I typed, of course, and then sat there, thumb hovering, unable to hit send. 2 Sundays later, I drove the 20 minutes to my parents' place in Beaver Creek for dinner, under the roof I bought, and somewhere between the pot roast and the pie, I said, as casually as I could manage. By the way, I got myself a cabin. I'm coming. Fork stopped. It was quick. A half second, maybe less. But I've sat across from enough clients to know what a flinch looks like when it's wearing a smile. My mother recovered first. Oh, she said. Well, of course, honey. If you can get away. If you can get away. Not, that's wonderful. Not, it wouldn't be the same without you. A scheduling remark. The kind of thing you say to a plumber who's offered to swing by. Melissa slid straight into a story about tablecloths for the Bon Voyage party, and the table moved on like a river closing over a stone. I sat there with my pie and did something I don't recommend. I watched my family talk about a vacation I had entirely paid for, and I counted the questions they asked me about it. What flight was I taking? Nobody asked. Did I want to sit with them at dinner seating? Nobody asked. Was I excited? Nobody asked. The only sentence aimed my way all evening came from Danny, on my way out the door, holding his phone like a clipboard. Hey, lanyards came? Sweet. I drove home with the radio off. 20 minutes of Ohio dark, both hands on the wheel, and I remember thinking, very clearly, like a line item, they didn't forget to invite me. Forgetting requires that you crossed somebody's mind. Whatever this was, it had never once involved my name. I just didn't have proof yet. The proof was coming. Aunt Ruth asked me to lunch the next week at the diner on Wayne Avenue where the coffee is terrible and the pie is not. She was already in the booth when I got there, sitting up straight the way her generation does, and before I'd even unzipped my coat, she slid a white envelope across the table. Inside, $200, in 20s. Your money, kiddo, from the Tucson airfare. I stared at it. I'd bought her a ticket to her granddaughter's wedding in Tucson 7 years ago, and forgotten about it the way you forget a Tuesday. She had not forgotten. She'd been setting aside $10 and $20 at a time for 7 years on a cafeteria pension. I tried to push it back, and she gave me a look that could freeze gravy. Don't insult me, I pay my debts. Then she stirred her terrible coffee and said, not looking up, they talk about you like a bill, Faith. In that chat. Like a utility company. She met my eyes. I don't like it. I told her it was fine. She let that lie sit between us like a third guest, and then she said something I didn't understand yet. The door she cracked open without walking through. Your mother wasn't always like this, you know. Ask her someday about your Grandma Fowler. 11 years that woman gave. 11. She waved for the check before I could ask what that meant, and paid it herself, in exact change, with $2 bills flattened like she'd ironed them. Whatever was in that chat, Ruth had seen it. And whatever those 11 years were, they were the key to my mother. And I would not turn it until the night everything else had already burned down. Here is where I want to freeze the story for a minute, because this is the night that mattered, even though nothing happened in it. Mid-April. Tax season over. My office after dark, one lamp on, everybody gone. I was closing out files, and at the bottom of the stack was the Meridian folder. 11 pages, my highlighter marks gone orange under the lamp. I don't know why I read it again. Habit, maybe. Accountants reread things the way other people check locks. Deposit schedule, penalty table, Section 9, authority of the group leader. And then, the last page, the signature block. One short typed line sitting alone. Group leader, Faith Fowler. I sat back in my chair and I read those words out loud, alone, in an empty office. It's a strange sentence to say to a filing cabinet, but you have to understand what I was looking at. For 12 years I had co-signed this family's whole life. The roof, the truck, the teeth, the tuition here, the bailout there. Always a supporting signature, always underneath somebody else's name, holding somebody else's weight. This was the first document my family had ever put me on alone. Sole authority. The one name that could move, change, or end the entire thing. They hadn't done it to honor me. They'd done it the way you list a company on a warranty card. Because paperwork needs a name, and mine was the one attached to the card. But paper doesn't care why you signed it. Paper only cares that you did. I put the contract back in the drawer, turned off the lamp, and stood in the dark a second longer than I needed to. Saturday was my parents' anniversary party. Danny had been teasing a surprise video all week. The party was at the church hall in Beaver Creek, 3 weeks before the cruise. Streamers, sheet cake, 70 folding chairs, my navy lanyards draped over a card table like medals waiting for a war. Danny wore a blazer. Danny in a blazer is how you know an audience is coming. After dinner he dimmed the lights, stood up with the projector remote and said, 45 years. And if there's one thing Mom and Dad taught us, this family pulls it together. Then came the video. Photos of my parents in 1981, Dad's collar like 2 airplane wings, kids, holidays, the decades rolling by to a piano track. And then, the montage of triumphs. The house in Beaver Creek, gleaming under its new roof. And when the storm hit, this family got it done, said Danny's voiceover, over a photo of Dad on a ladder he did not climb until the roofers I paid were gone. The red truck in the driveway, base boat behind it. When times got tough, we bet on ourselves. My father's smile, the after picture from a dental office in Centerville. And we kept smiling. The room clapped at every slide. My mother pressed her hand to her chest. My father wiped his eyes. And I sat in the fourth row of folding chairs and watched 12 years of my life play on a bedsheet screen with my name nowhere in it. Not in a caption, not in the voiceover, not in the thank yous at the end, which included the church, the caterer, and God. I clapped too. 2 beats late, both times, like a woman at a play in a language she used to speak. Nobody noticed. Of course, nobody noticed. You don't look at the bridge, you drive over it. I found Danny by the dessert table afterward, stacking leftover cake onto a paper plate with the focus of a man loading a truck. I kept my voice easy. Church hall easy. Nice video, I said. The roof photo was a good touch. You know where that roof came from. He didn't even stop stacking. Insurance, mostly, he said. I let the silence do its work, and after a second he glanced up and had the decency to look briefly, like a man remembering where a body was buried. Okay. And you helped. That was different, though. He shrugged, licking frosting off his thumb. That's just what family does. That's just what family does. Notice the trick in that sentence. I've had a lot of time to study it. When I write a check, it's what family does, which means it vanishes into the air like a hymn, no name attached. But a cruise nobody's paid for yet? That's Danny putting this whole thing together. The system only has one direction. Money flows in namelessly, credit flows out with a return address. My dad drifted over while I stood there, sensing weather the way he does. He'd heard the last of it. I watched him hear it. And my father, 39 years of honest work in his hands, looked at me, looked at Danny, and said, "Who's taking these chairs down?" Then he began folding chairs, one at a time, very carefully. That was the moment I stopped being angry, and something colder and much more useful moved in where the anger had been. I said goodnight to my mother. I kissed her cheek. I complimented the cake. And I drove my 20 minutes home thinking, so that's what family does. Good to know the rate. You'd think, after the bedsheet screen, I'd have been done trying. You would be wrong, and honestly, that's the part of this story I most need the women listening to hear. Hope is a habit, and habits don't care what you learned on Saturday. The Meridian Dawn had a specialty restaurant on Deck 10, white tablecloths, strings, the kind of place you book months out. Their 45th anniversary, the actual date, June 15th, would land on our second night at sea. So Monday I called my mother with what I thought was a gift and what she heard as a service inquiry. "Mom, let me book you and Dad the nice restaurant for the 15th. My treat. Just the two of you. Or all of us. Whatever you want." There was a pause, and for exactly the length of that pause, the 10-year-old in my ribcage stood on her toes. Then my mother said, "Oh, honey, don't waste it. The buffet's included." I started to say it wasn't a waste, and she talked over me, cheerful, already elsewhere. "You know what you could put that toward? The group photo package. Melissa says they do it formal night. Everybody in the shirts. You're so good with the details." And there it was again, the little slot I lived in. Not a guest at the dinner, a vendor for the photograph. I said sure. "Mm-hmm. Sounds good." And then I did something I have no defense for. After we hung up, I booked the restaurant anyway. 2 seats, the 15th, 7 o'clock, under my name. Quietly, like the cabin. A reservation for a dinner nobody had said yes to, held by a woman nobody had invited. Hope is a habit. So is reading email too fast. And one was sitting in my inbox right then that I really should have opened slower. The email came in on a Wednesday in mid-May, while I was standing in line for a sandwich between 2 client meetings, reading my phone the way we all do, with our eyes and not our brain. From the travel agency. Subject: Guest name change processed, booking 8226-04. The body was 3 lines of boilerplate. A change had been completed on the reservation. Updated documents were attached. No action was required. No action required. To a woman drowning in quarterly filings, those are magic words. I remember my exact thought process because I have replayed it maybe 200 times since. Somebody fixed a typo. Kayla's legal name, probably, or one of the kids' middle names for the manifest. 19 people, 10 cabins. Of course, there'd be corrections. I archived it with my thumb, unread attachment and all, and moved up one spot in the sandwich line. That was it. That was the whole crime scene. 14 seconds in a deli, one flick of a thumb. If you've been listening closely, you already caught what I didn't. The booking number, 8226. Not one of their 10 cabins. Mine. Somebody had processed a name change on my cabin, and the system dutifully notified the group leader, and the group leader was busy ordering a turkey club. I wouldn't understand what I'd just archived until the morning online check-in opened, 2 weeks before sailing. And I promise you, no spreadsheet error I have ever found in my career landed like that screen did. 90 days, $52,000, and my name lived on exactly one page of that whole trip. The page nobody read. If your family has ever spent your money and erased your name in the same breath, put the word invoice in the comments below. And subscribe, because what I found when check-in opened is where this stops being a story about a cruise. Online check-in for the Meridian Dawn opened on May 31st, 14 days before sailing, at 6 in the morning. I logged in at 6:15 with my coffee, because I'm the group leader and 19 people's passport numbers were, naturally, my job. I did their cabins first. All 10, clean, no errors. Say what you want about my family, I run a tight manifest. Then I clicked my own cabin to enter my passport. Cabin 8226, and the screen said, Guests, Raymond Coulter, Judith Coulter. I actually smiled at it for a second. The dumb smile you give a wrong number, waiting for it to apologize. Ray and Judy Coulter, Melissa's parents, in my cabin. I refreshed the page. Raymond Coulter, Judith Coulter. I logged out and back in. The ritual of a woman buying time. Raymond, Judith. And down at the bottom of the cabin invoice, unchanged. Patient as a headstone, paid in full. Card ending 4417. My card. My windowless little room on deck 8, near the elevators, the one I'd booked on my lunch break with the door closed like a teenager buying a concert ticket. Reassigned, weeks ago, to 2 people I share no blood with, while the bill for it stayed exactly where bills in this family always stay, and that's when the deli line came back to me. The email in May. Guest name change processed. Booking 8226-04. No action required. I hadn't misread a typo correction. I had thumb-flicked away the eviction notice for the last seat I ever tried to buy at my family's table. I put down the coffee. I looked at the wall. And then I picked up the phone, because now I had questions. The travel agency opened at 9. By 9:04 I had Miss Whitfield on the line, the agent who'd processed everything from the start, a kind, flustered woman I could hear turning pale over the phone. It took her 90 seconds of clicking to find it, and when she did, her voice dropped into the register people use for accidents. Oh no. The change had come in by phone in mid-May, from Danny. He'd told her the family had shuffled some rooms around, and that his in-laws would be taking 8226, and could she move Faith off the reservation? She's not really coming anyway, she just books things. The family agreed, he'd said. Everyone's on the same page, he'd said. Ms. Fowler, I am so sorry, Whitfield said, and here her voice went very careful, like a woman stepping onto ice she'd just noticed was thin. That change required written consent from the group leader. From you. It should never have gone through on a phone call. That's on us. I was quiet for a moment, and in that quiet, 2 facts arranged themselves side by side on my desk like exhibits. Fact 1. In the eyes of my family, I was so far from being a person on this trip that my own brother could give away my bed with a phone call, the way you'd cancel a newspaper. Fact 2. In the eyes of the contract, the only document in this whole affair with any teeth, there was exactly one signature on earth that could move anything, and it wasn't his. So the only authorization that matters here is mine, I said slowly. And the one person nobody asked is me. Whitfield was quiet too. Yes, ma'am. That's about the size of it. I called my mother at lunch. One question. I'd promised myself just the one, and I kept my voice as flat as a bank statement. Mom, who decided Ray and Judy get my cabin? No pause. No guilt. Not even the courtesy of pretending to need a second to remember. Oh, honey, that was weeks ago. Danny handled it. Ray's knees are terrible, sweetheart. They couldn't do the pull-out couch in the quad with the boys. A beat, and then, gently, like she was handing me a casserole. You weren't really going to come anyway. You'd have just worked in the cabin the whole time. This way, the room gets used. The room gets used. I stood at my office window and looked at the parking lot and understood, finally and completely, the operating system I had been born into. She wasn't lying. That's what I need you to sit with. My mother was not lying, not covering, not even slightly ashamed, because in her arithmetic, what happened was fair. A room existed. Ray's knees were bad. I was an abstraction with a credit card 200 miles from mattering. Moving my name off my own cabin wasn't a betrayal, it was good resource management. Everyone gives what they have, Faith, she said, when I stayed quiet too long. There it was again. The family creed. The whole Constitution in a single sentence. Ray gives his bad knees. Danny gives his phone calls. And I give the $55,000. And then I give the room. And this is a system so natural to her that my silence read as agreement. I have a client, I said, which was true. The client was me. And that night, my phone lit up. Ruth. Ruth didn't call this time. She forwarded one long screenshot, 11 at night, with a single line of her own above it. You deserve to know what you're paying for, kiddo. The thread was from a second group chat. Not Cruise Fam. This one was called Cruise Fam. No Faith. They had built a separate room specifically to exclude me, and then they had named the room after the exclusion. There, between packing memes, was the housing debate over cabin 8226 3 weeks old. Melissa. Okay, but if we move, Ray plus Judy, can someone tell Faith? Danny. Why, she'll write it off anyway. Kayla. Wait, she paid? For the whole thing? LOL legend. And then Melissa again. And this is the one. This is the sentence I will be able to recite on my deathbed. Honestly, it's better without her. She'd make it weird. She doesn't know how to relax, LOL. 41 members in that chat. Not one of them typed, "That's her cabin." Not one. I sat in my dark office and read the thread through 4 times, top to bottom, the way I audit a ledger, and somewhere on the 4th pass the thing I'd been protecting for 38 years quietly closed its account. Because here's what the audit showed. I'd thought I was buying a seat at the table. I wasn't. I was funding the table's ability to eat without looking at me. $55,000, and what it had actually purchased, line item by line item, was my own absence, with a laughing emoji next to it. I called no one, and I typed nothing. I turned off the lamp and sat in my car in the empty lot for a while. The old life, the one where I still hoped, ended in that parking lot. It doesn't come back from a named room. I called Ruth the next evening. I didn't mention the thread, and neither did she. Some things sisters in arms leave folded. Instead, I asked the question I'd been saving since the diner. Ruth, what happened with Grandma Fowler? The 11 years? Ruth was quiet long enough that I heard her kitchen clock. Then she told me. When Dad's mother had her stroke, I was a toddler. The Fowler family held a meeting about the nursing home, and the nursing home cost money, and money was scarce, and every eye in that living room slid, one by one, to the daughter-in-law who wasn't working anyway. 11 years, Faith. 11 years your mother bathed that woman, fed her, turned her every 4 hours so the sores wouldn't come, slept on a cot in the sewing room. Jean's brothers sent checks at Christmas. Checks, Ruth said, with the disgust of a woman describing spoiled meat. And at the funeral, the pastor thanked the whole family's devotion, And the brothers stood up front and wept, and your mother sat in the third row in her good dress with her ruined hands folded, and nobody said her name. Your mother learned that math from somewhere, kiddo, Ruth said. She paid 11 years into a system that never once said her name out loud. And instead of burning it down, God help her, she decided the system was fair and spent the rest of her life collecting on it. I thanked her. We hung up. And then I did the only thing I decided that night. I opened the airline app and canceled my flight to Orlando. One tap, no announcement, $100 credit for a trip nobody knew I'd stopped taking. I wasn't planning anything yet. I had simply stopped hoping. There's a difference, and everything that happened next lives inside it. I want to be honest about the next 10 days, because this is the stretch everyone gets wrong when they imagine themselves in it. I did not sit in a dark room plotting. I did payroll. I met clients. I watered the ficus. The cruise sat in my chest like a stone I was learning to breathe around, and I told exactly one human being because she asked me a question no one in my family ever had. Bonnie caught me staring at nothing on a Thursday, closed my office door, sat down across from me the way she does when a client is about to make a bad decision, and said, "What do you want, hun?" Not what happened. Not what's fair. What do you want? I opened my mouth to say something sensible, and what came out after a long minute was, "To be asked. Just once. To be asked." Bonnie nodded slowly, the way you nod at a number that finally reconciles, and said, "Well, they're not going to ask." And she went back to her desk. That was the whole conversation, and it rearranged me more than the thread had. Because she was right, and it meant the question in front of me was never going to be answered by them, only by me. That night, I took the Meridian contract out of the drawer and read Section 9 one more time, not with a highlighter this time, just with my own two eyes. The sole party authorized to modify or cancel. I didn't write a plan. There was no list, no revenge board with red string. I just looked at my kitchen calendar, at June 14th. And I drew one small circle around the words already printed in the square. 6:00 a.m., and I told no one at all. June 13th. The night before sailing, my family was already in Florida, and thanks to Ruth's screenshots, I got to watch the caravan land. The chat, the one with my name in the title as an absence, was a fireworks show. Boomerangs of cocktails at the airport hotel bar. The grandkids cannonballing into a pool. Melissa in a captain's hat, pre-cruise vibes. Danny, arm around my father, both of them sunburned already. 19 strong, family is everything. 19 strong. I sat on my kitchen floor in Dayton. I'd taken to the floor lately. Don't ask me why. It felt structural. And scrolled through my family having the time of their lives on my dime, one state and one universe away. At 9:40 p.m. my phone buzzed. Mom. For one soft, stupid second, the 10-year-old in my ribcage sat up. Maybe, on the eve of it, at the rail of the hotel balcony, my mother had thought of me. It was a voicemail. I still know it by heart. "Faith, honey, it's Mom. Listen, don't forget. Danny says you ordered those lanyards. Bring them to the port tomorrow. We'll be at the terminal by 9. Everybody's so excited." "Okay. Drive safe." That was the whole message. The night before their 45th anniversary cruise, my mother's only thought of me was a supply run. I was, to the very end, the person who brings the lanyards. I listened to it twice, standing at the counter. Then I set the phone face down, washed my one dish, and set my alarm for 5:45 in the morning. The lanyards, for the record, were already in Florida. I'd shipped them to the hotel 2 weeks earlier. I'm good with logistics. My alarm went off at 5:45 and I was already awake. Dayton was still dark. I made coffee I didn't drink. Some mornings the ritual is the point. And I laid the Meridian contract on the kitchen table, squared to the table's edge, the way I set up a client file before a hard call. I want you to see the scene honestly. No war room, no wine, no shaking hands. A 38-year-old woman in a bathrobe at a kitchen table, with a booking number written on a sticky note, calling a 1-800 number at 5:58 in the morning. I'd verified the group desk hours 2 weeks earlier. the same night I circled the calendar. They staff it around the clock on sailing days. Of course I'd checked. I'm me. The line picked up on the third ring. Meridian Cruise Line Group Services. This is Tessa Alvarez. How can I help you this morning? Her voice had that 6 a.m. steadiness I have always respected in a professional, the sound of a person who has seen every kind of morning. Good morning, Tessa, I said. I need to make a change to a group reservation sailing today. Booking number 88-40117. Keys. Clicking. Thank you. For security, can I have the last four of the card on file and the name of the group leader on the account? 4417, I said, and the group leader is Faith Fowler. A pause while her screen caught up. Thank you, Ms. Fowler. I have you. Sole authority on the booking. What can I do for you? And I looked out my dark kitchen window, and I heard a stranger in Florida, at 6 a.m, become the first person in this entire story to call me by my actual title. I'd like to discuss canceling the reservation, I said. The whole group. Tessa did not gasp. I'll always be grateful for that. She simply read me the facts, in the level voice of a nurse reading a chart. Okay. I do have to advise you. We're inside the penalty window. Cancellation today is a 100% forfeiture. That's 10 staterooms plus one. The full amount, $55,580. Non-refundable, ma'am. No credits, no rebooking value. $55,500. My roof, my truck, my father's teeth. All over again, in one number, said out loud in the dark. I understand, I said. And then Tessa, doing her job, doing it well, offered me the door out. One other option, before anything's final. If you don't want the responsibility, I can transfer group leader authority to another adult in the party. Takes 10 minutes and a conference call. Then any decision would be theirs, not yours. And there it was. The exit. Hand it to Danny. The ship sails at 4, 19 people cheer at the rail. The money becomes what it's always become. A gift with somebody else's name on the tag. My mother keeps the version of me she's always had. Quiet, useful, good with logistics. Nobody ever knows how close it came. All I had to do was what I had done for 12 years, pass the authority down the table and cover the check. I looked at the contract on my kitchen table. 11 pages, one orange highlight, one typed line. Group leader, Faith Fowler. The only document my family ever trusted me to sign alone. Ma'am, are you still there? I was. I was more there than I had ever been in my life. No, I said. No transfer. Cancel it. All of it. There was one short silence on the line, not judgment. Confirmation protocols have a rhythm, and I know a professional running one when I hear it. Understood. I'm required to read this back, Tessa said. You are canceling group booking 88-40117 aboard Meridian Dawn, sailing today, June 14th. 11 staterooms, 19 guests on the manifest. Total forfeiture, $55,580. Zero refund. This cannot be reversed once processed. If you agree, please say, I confirm. I looked at my kitchen window, where the sky over my neighbor's garage was going from black to a thin, workmanlike gray, the exact color of a ledger line. 38 years, 12 years of checks, 90 days since a smiley face next to a number. And I said, in the same voice I use to approve a tax return, I confirm. Keys. A soft chime, small as a teaspoon. It's done, Ms. Fowler. Released at 6:02 a.m. Confirmations going to your email. You're the only address on file. The only address on file. From the very beginning. I thanked her. I believe I even wished her a quiet shift. And I hung up. And I want to tell you what I actually did next, because it wasn't a toast and it wasn't a victory lap. I slid down and sat on my kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, in my bathrobe. And I breathed like a woman who has just set down something she'd been carrying so long her arms had forgotten they were arms. Understand what I had just paid. Not $55,000. That was already gone. That had been gone since March. What I spent at 6:02 was the last of something else. The daughter who believed the next check would finally do it. She didn't survive the call. That was the price. And I paid it myself, on purpose, with the lights off. My mother had told me the truth all along, hadn't she? I was the one with money. And this morning, at last, I had spent it on something for me. What I bought was the answer. 3 hours south, 19 suitcases were already being loaded into vans. I know what happened at Port Canaveral because Ruth called me at 9:40, live from the middle of it, half whispering, and because my mother's phone spent most of the morning on speaker. The caravan hit the terminal at 9 sharp. 19 people, matching navy shirts, my lanyards around their necks. Danny at the front with a folder of boarding passes that were no longer attached to anything. The line moved. The Fowler party reached the desk. And the agent typed, and frowned, and typed again, and said the sentence that stopped the whole sunburned parade cold. I'm sorry. This booking was released this morning. Released? Danny laughed at first, Ruth said. Actually laughed, held up his folder, told the man to check again, spelled the name. The agent checked again. The reservation was canceled at 6:02 a.m. by the group leader. And into that gorgeous Florida morning, in front of 19 relatives and 100 strangers in line, somebody finally asked the question my family had needed to ask for 90 days. Who the hell is the group leader? The agent looked at his screen and read the answer off it, plain as a gate number. Faith Fowler. Ruth said the name moved down that line of matching shirts like a dropped wire. My name, out loud, at last, attached to the one thing they'd never imagined, authority. Then my mother stepped to the desk, 19 suitcases stacked behind her like a barricade, and called me. I was still at my kitchen table. I let it ring twice. Faith. Her voice was terminal loud, speaker on. There's been some mistake at the desk. Fix it, now. There's no mistake, Mom. A beat. And then the escalation I'd heard my whole life aimed at other people. Then you call them back and you undo it. We'll pay the difference, whatever it costs. Pay? With what? Whose card? Faith Marie Fowler. I am your mother. I carried you. We are standing here with the children. And then, when none of it landed, the last door slammed. You are no daughter of mine. I waited for the echo off the terminal ceiling to die, and I said, quietly, once. You sent me an invoice, Mom. Not an invitation. I paid the invoice. I canceled the rest. Then I hung up, before she could hear my hands shake. And before mine could. The phone became a hornet's nest by 10. Danny, voice